Okay, so we have been talking about the Beast of Revelation, and the Beast of Revelation has been revealed. It's been revealed, it's been here, and it's been here for a long time. Now, some people in the comments and some people even on TikTok are questioning why this is why this beast is not Islam. Well, we're going to break it down today. And I'm going to show you that it is Islam. I'm going to give you multiple verses, and I'm going to give you multiple interpretations in the Greek as to why it's Islam. So let's start with Revelation chapter 13:1. This is John giving us the description of this beast. Now, mind you, when Daniel was talking about these beasts, he didn't say they had 7 heads and 10 horns. They did have 10 horns, but not 7 heads. So we kind of have to dive in and find out what these 7 heads are. So John says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns." Now, the word crowns there is kind of particular because it's not a typical crown like you would see in modern time, right? It's not a crown that you would see like the King of England or the Queen of England wearing. It's actually diadem, and we'll dive into that one. "And upon his heads, the name of blasphemy." Okay, so we have to also define what blasphemy is, okay? Because if we don't define what these words are, and it's not defining them of what we want them to be, it's what does the Bible define these words to be, right? And the best commentation on the Bible is the Bible. So let's kind of dive in here and let's see. So the word crown, okay? And again, Let's break all this down first. So when John said he stood upon the sand of the sea, okay, that is an allegory. That is not a literal statement, okay? And the problem with the West is we take what's allegorical and we make it literal, right? That's the thing. We take what's allegorical and we make it literal. And that can be a problem, because then you get skewed and you have misinterpretations of what John is actually saying here. So, John was not a Grecan Roman Westerner, okay? He's from the Middle East, and he's going to use idioms that we're not going to use. So we kind of have to uncover that. So again, in the West, we typically take what's literal and we make it allegorical, and what's allegorical, we make it literal. Right? So when John says, and I stood upon the sand of the sea, that's not a literal statement. That's an allegorical statement. So the allegory is that the sea is a multitude of people. Okay? So this is the beast comes from a multitude of people. Now we have to find out who those people are in order to properly identify this beast. Okay? And he says, "I saw it rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns." Okay, so if we jump over to Revelation 17, the angel actually tells John, okay, he tells John what the 7 heads are and what the 10 horns are. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. Okay, some translations will say hills. And that's why a lot of people think that it has to be the Vatican, because the Vatican sits near 7 hills. But is that what John was actually referring to? Again, we're taking what's allegorical and we're making it literal. We can't do that. Then you don't get the proper translation. So there are many times in Scripture where God says the word mountain. King David mentions mountain in Psalms, and in Proverbs there are mentions of mountains, and in the prophets, mountains. Now, sometimes they are actually referring to literal mountains, but there are times where it's allegorical, okay? He says that the 7 heads are 7 mountains, but the 10 horns are 10 kings. Well, kings don't rule mountains, they rule kingdoms. So when he says mountains, he's not meaning physical, literal mountains like a mountain range or hills. He means kingdoms. So we have to understand that the 7 heads are 7 kingdoms and the 10 horns are 10 kings. And the word king is not always an actual king. The head leader of a nation is the king, right? We know this because if you go back to Daniel, he mentions King Belshazzar. Well, King Belshazzar actually wasn't the king. He was a prince. So king can just mean anybody that's a leader within that government system, right? So when we look at this, we know that mountains means kingdoms. So when Jesus said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Well, he wasn't actually talking about literal mountains. And when you talk to people, American Christians, the majority of them, and you ask them, what did Jesus mean when he said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains? And everybody will tell you, oh, it's my credit card debt, it's my problems in my marriage, it's my work, it's all these other things. That is a generalization, and generalizations were not something that Jesus typically did. When Jesus was talking about something, he was talking about something specific, right? And I would refer people who say, well, he's talking about all my problems, to when Jesus said, if your father takes care of the sparrow in the sky, what more are you to him than the sparrow? That's when he's referring to all of your problems. He's not referring to your problems in that statement. What he means to say, okay, is if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move the nations. You can change the world with just a little bit of faith. That's what he's meaning. And they even still use this allegory today in modern Middle Eastern people. You look at some of the terrorists, the Islamic terrorists that have talked on camera. They say, we will spread Islam through the mountains. Okay? Does he actually mean the mountains? The desolate mountains that no one lives on? No, he means the nations, right? And so that's something that we have to understand. Remember, the best commentation on the Bible is the Bible. So we know that the 7 heads are 7 nations, and the 10 horns are 10 kings. And upon his horns, 10 crowns. Now, I kind of want to look into that crowns. Okay, let's go into this. So it's a diadem. So let's have the Strong's pronunciation.
Strong's G 1238. Diadema. Diadema.
Okay, so that's diadema, okay? And it's a blue band marked with white, which Persian kings used to bind on the turban or tiara, okay? That would be the better translation. So we know, again, John is, with what he's saying, is kind of giving us the location of where this beast is, just by that. However, we can't say, oh, I know the location now, it's got to be from Persia, just because that one thing. Okay, we have to really dive into it. And again, I'm going to disappoint some of y'all, and some of y'all are going to disagree with me that it's not Rome, that it's not a United Nations. So, but again, I got to prove that to you scripturally. I can't just say it, I've got to prove it. So, and it says right here, and upon his heads, the name of blasphemy. So let's really look at that word blasphemy. What does blasphemy actually mean? Well, blasphemy, okay, is the reason that they crucified Christ, okay? So when Muslims say, well, Jesus never proclaimed to be God, well, they're full of it. Because that's exactly why they crucified him. Because he claimed to be God. They crucified him. They wanted him dead, right? because he claimed to be God. They wanted him dead because he, to them, was committing blasphemy. So blasphemy is anything or anyone that proclaims to be God when they are not. So let's actually look at this word blasphemy. And the reason I want to look into the word blasphemy is, and we'll do this real quick. I want y'all to hear the word so you'll know these words. Kind of, if you're a Christian and you love the word, learn your Greek.
Strong's G 988, blasphemia. Blasphemia.
Okay, so blasphemia. All right. Now, it has slander, detraction, speech injurious to another's good name. But it's also impious and reproachful speech, injurious to divine majesty. So there's two definitions. But what I'm looking at is that this word is singular. And in some translations, they have it as plural. The names of blasphemies. So is it the name of blasphemy or is it the name of blasphemies? Plural. So the way John actually wrote it would be singular. It's a singular name. It's not a multitude of names. It's a singular name. But it also could be a multitude of names. And I know that sounds confusing, but you'll have to wait and hear what I have to say to understand what I'm meaning by that. And we'll get to that at the later part of Revelation, okay? We'll get to that at the later part. So, let's go to verse 2. Verse 2 actually gives us the location of this beast. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority. Okay. Well, how does that give us the location? Well, you got to go back to Daniel. Okay. Daniel tells us in Daniel 7, there's the lion, there's the bear, and there's the leopard. Well, all of those that Daniel mentions are empires. It was the Babylonian Empire, the Grecian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, and the Roman Empire. And I know he only gives 3 because they didn't count the Babylonian. So it was the Medo-Persian Empire, the Grecian Empire, and the Roman Empire. Okay? So he gives you the location of where this beast will come from. Because if you go back to Daniel 7, he tells you that there is a 4th beast who's even more mighty and more terrifying than the others, right? So John's giving us the location of this beast. And right here, it says, Revelation 13:3, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Now, this is where some people, even a lot of preachers too, end-time teachers, will tell you, well, this is the Antichrist, and they tried to assassinate him, and they tried to kill him, and he came back from the dead. What? This is not talking about the Antichrist. Nowhere in this chapter does it talk about the Antichrist. Nowhere. This is talking about an empire or a nation. So I don't know where most of these people get this information, but it's almost as if they don't actually read their Bible. And I'm not knocking anybody for believing this because I did until I started actually reading and doing my own research. And again, it doesn't add up to Antichrist. Well, what does it mean? Well, you got to go back to the book of Daniel. Daniel tells us, and then we got to jump forward a little bit to Revelation 17. And he must rule for a short time. Okay? Well, who? Well, the only reason that this has to be an Islamic empire is because, well, one, Daniel said it, and two, John is telling you, because he tells you in Revelation 17. Let's jump over to Revelation 17 real quick. I kind of want to get over to Revelation 17 just to kind of give you an idea, because that also talks about the beast, okay? But he says, let's see here. He's talking about the kings, right? The kingdoms. Revelation 17:10. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. Okay? So he tells you. So 5 are fallen. The Egyptian, the Assyrian, the Babylonian, the Grecian, and the Medo-Persian. Okay? And I listed those out of order, so let me do that again and list them in order for you. So it would be the Egyptian, the Assyrian, the Babylonian, the Medo-Persian, and the Grecian. So 5 have fallen, and he says 1 is. Well, what is that 1? Well, that's the Roman Empire. John was writing this during the reign of the Roman Empire. And the other is not yet come. Well, all of those in secular history conquered one another. So could we maybe assume that the other would conquer Rome? Well, who conquered Rome? Well, everybody will tell you, well, Rome fell in like 450-something AD. I can't remember the exact name or the exact date. But I can tell you when the Roman Empire was actually done and no more. And it was about 1,000 years later. In 1453 AD, Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Empire. They were conquered. And they were taken over. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that it's the Ottoman Empire yet. What I'm telling you is that it's an Islamic empire. And he says, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Short space, I mean, and that could mean anything, right? Jesus said, I'm coming again soon. That was 2,000 years ago. So what does a short space mean? Well, Daniel tells us. You go back to Daniel chapter 12, and he says, you know, when the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, you have 1,290 days. Well, we already know what that was. You go from 603 BC, when the Babylonians took the last of the Jewish captives, right? And you add 1,290 years. You have to add 1 because it's from BC to AD. You get 688. You get the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock being the abomination of desolation. Well, he also says in the following verse, blessed is he who waited to the 1,335th day. So is he adding an additional 1,335 days? I don't think so. I think he's just adding an additional few years. Well, you add that up and you get to roughly here, okay, the very end of 732 AD, okay? And there's more math into that, and I'll dive into that later, okay? I will dive into that because it's 45 years, but it's technically not exactly 45 years, and that's because of calendar dates and changes, and I'll dive into that again at a later time because that's just not what we're talking about today. But anyway, in 732 AD, okay, this is something that all Christians should know about. This was the Battle of Tours. The Battle of Tours took place against the Muslim empire that was conquering Europe at the time, and it was Christians versus Muslims. And there's almost no way the Christians should have won. But they were reigning. I mean, you really think about it, from the time Muhammad enters the stage to 732 AD, it's not very much time. And they have conquered the entire Middle East at that point, Northern Africa, and parts of Europe. And they had already taken over Israel and Jerusalem. And so he must continue a short space. Well, after the Battle of Tours, the Battle of Tours, the Muslim empire is pushed back. It's pushed back. It's stalemated for a long time. Okay? Then he says, and the beast that was, okay, and he's talking about Islam here, and is not, right? Even he is the 8th. Okay. So now we know that the seventh beast is the eighth beast. That's where his wound, he had the deadly wound. He was pushed back, couldn't advance anymore, but he was healed. So let's go back to Revelation 13. Let's jump to verse 4. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. So who's the dragon? Well, we know through other biblical descriptions, right? Best commentation on the Bible is the Bible, right? You go to Revelation chapter 12, and we know that Lucifer, or the devil, is the dragon. So they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. So they worship Satan. It's somebody who worships Satan. These people who are a part of this beast system worship the devil. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Well, let's kind of dive in here. Let's look at the word worship, right? Worshipped. That's proskuneo.
Strong's G, 4352. Proskuneo.
Okay.
Proskuneo.
And then the word here is also proskuneo. But they mean two different worships, right? One is like servitude to a god, right? See, used of homage shown to men and beings of superior rank, to God, right? But it also could mean to kiss the hand towards one in token of reverence. Among the Orientals and the Persians, to fall upon the knees and touch the ground with the forehead as an expression of profound reverence. Kind of sounds like what the Muslims do, doesn't it? Look, and guys, I'm not saying that, we need to go and be mean to Muslim people. Absolutely not. Do not take this as we need to be mean to them. No. We need to pray for them. We need to love them and show them the love of Jesus Christ. That's what you need to do. You have to do that. It's not an option. If you're a Christian, you need to be kind and you need to love them. This is in no way, shape, or form meant to be mean to anybody. I want that to be known. But it also means to use of homage shown to men and beings of, so men, also men. So what does the word worship here mean when he says they worship the dragon? Well, that's where they bow down and they actually worship, right? As to a deity. But then they say, and they worship the beast. Well, what do you mean they worship the beast? Well, they praise it, right? I mean, let's be honest. We worship the United States. Anytime you say the Pledge of Allegiance, that's worship. Anytime you sing the national anthem, that's worship. Anytime you stand in reverence, that's worship. So you are worshiping, because worship, well, the word worship just means worthy of your time, okay? And there are many forms of worship, right? There's worship to God, and then there's worship to your wife, your husband, sometimes your children. When you give them your time, that is a form of worship. You just have to be careful of what you're worshiping. Now, who is able to make war with him? Do people make war with other people, or do nations make war against nations? Well, nations make wars against nations, kingdom against kingdoms. And let's go to verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. So do you think he actually means a literal mouth? No, it's not a literal mouth. Okay, it's a platform. It's enough people being able to speak these things. That's what it is. And people and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Well, we've already kind of touched base on this, the 42 months, right? So 42 months is 1,260 days. Going by a Jewish calendar, you have 360 days in a year, and you multiply the 360 times the 3.5 years, right? 42 months, 3.5 years, you get 1,260, right? Well, you go to 688 AD when this beast reigned, because he's saying that power was given unto him, right, to continue 1,260 days. And you add that 1,260 to 688 AD, you get to 1948. And people in the comments were saying, I love when people set dates, because the calendars are different. The calendars are not off from when John wrote this. That was AD time already, right? Maybe a few things changed, just a few things, but for the most part, it was still there. That time frame was already there. We follow a Roman calendar to this day. So you add the 1,260 days or years, and why are we saying a day for a year? Well, because that's what God told Ezekiel in chapter 4 of Ezekiel. A day for a year prophecy. That's exactly what he said. So we take the day for a year, we turn the days into years, and he never stopped doing that, by the way. Never once did he stop doing that. You get to 1948. That's how long this beast had power. And there was, and let's go to verse 6. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. Well, that's what the Dome of the Rock does. The Dome of the Rock sits on the second Temple Mount on the Holy of Holies. That's God's tabernacle. And on the Dome of the Rock, it reads, God has no son. The Dome of the Rock is the abomination of desolation. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear why you disagree. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. Now, let's really dive into that one, right? Everybody says, well, it's the entire world. No, it's not. It's not at all. And we'll go into that here in a minute, but in the Greek, when John says the world, he means a border of land. That's what he's saying. He means like a border of a nation or an empire, right? And empires can encompass multiple nations. So if it can encompass multiple nations, then it can encompass multiple different tongues and kindreds and nations. I mean, this has already happened, folks. When he says, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints. Well, what do you think Islam did? I mean, we can really get into when is the tribulation? Well, the tribulation is already happening. It's been here. It's been here since 688 AD. Read Matthew 24. Jesus said, when you see the abomination of desolation, right? Then he tells you there will be great tribulation. He never tells you that it's 7 years. And Daniel doesn't tell you it's 7 years. And John most certainly didn't say it was 7 years. So where do we get this idea from? Well, we get it because that's what we've been taught our entire lives. Hundreds of millions of Christians have been murdered for Jesus' name's sake. Hundreds of millions. You don't think we're not in the tribulation? After witnessing World War I, World War II, and all these other wars and deaths and murders of fellow Christians, we're not in the tribulation? We're in it, folks. You're living in it. Most Christians don't even know about what happened to the Church of Smyrna in Turkey. What the Ottomans did in September of 1922. They mass murdered Christians. There was American ships there. They did nothing to stop it. But they were killing people so brutally and so harsh. And they were beheading people. They beheaded so many women that the ships in the port couldn't even leave because the hair of the women's heads were tangling up the propellers. And you're going to tell me that we're not in the time of tribulation? I'm sorry, but we are. And Islam has already had power over the saints. But check it out, in 1948, they stopped. They didn't have any more power. It was stripped. The Middle East has absolutely been stripped. But don't worry, it's coming back, just like John said in Revelation 17. The seventh head is also of the eighth, right? So it's got to come back. I'm telling you that a lot of this biblical prophecy has already been fulfilled. However, not all of it's been fulfilled. Okay? And let's go to verse 8. And all that dwell upon the earth. Again, let's dive into that word earth, into the original Greek. John doesn't mean the entire globe. He actually means just like a border of land.
Strong's G 1093. Gay.
That's the word for earth. Gay, right? Land. The ground, the earth as a standing place. A country, land enclosed with fixed borders, a tract of land, territory, or region. And he's already given you that region. He gave you that region in verse 2 with the lion, the bear, and the leopard. He gave it to you. He told you this is Medo-Persia. This is where this beast will come from, the Middle East. That's exactly where John told you it would come. So it's not the whole world, it's just there. Okay, and it says, and all that dwell upon the earth are within this border, right? Because if you go back to, and I could give an example as well, because the best commentation on the Bible is the Bible. Go back to Daniel, where King Nebuchadnezzar says, and all nations and tongues and kindreds shall bow down to my statue. Okay, did he mean the whole world, or did he mean everybody within his kingdom? Because not everybody lived in the kingdom of Babylon. So, of course, he wasn't meaning the whole world, right? He was meaning everybody within his borders, all tongues, kindreds, and nations, right? That's what he was referring to. It's what John is referring to, okay? So he's saying, and all that dwell upon the earth or in that kingdom shall worship him, and whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So he's telling you these people are not believers, okay? And then John said, so John writes, but remember, the book of Revelation is not a revelation of John or of any other Christian, it's a revelation of Jesus Christ, right? Jesus Christ is giving this revelation. And yes, he does use some of the angels to give it, but this is a revelation of Jesus Christ. And he says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So what he's telling you is what comes around goes around. He's telling you tit for tat, this for that. That's what he's telling you in these two verses here. And he told Peter, those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. And guess what? He tells you the same thing here. So now we go into the second beast. There are two beasts. Two beasts of Revelation 13. One is a nation. The other, well, let's dive in and find out. Let's see what the Bible actually says about the second beast. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Well, Jesus is the Lamb of God, and Satan is the great mimicker. We know this. So what is it? Well, it kind of sounds like a religion of false peace. Sound familiar? He's a lamb. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I think that the 2 horns represent the 7th and the 8th head. So just off of this verse, we kind of get an idea of what the second beast is. The second beast has to be a religious system. It has to be a religious system that claims to be peaceful, but isn't. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I mean, you know how many books are written? Islam, the religion of peace. Well, Waleed Shulbat one time said in an interview on CNN, they asked him, why do you not think Islam is a religion of peace? And he said, if you have to say Islam is a religion of peace, it's probably not a religion of peace. No one says, oh, Christianity, the peaceful religion. Oh, Judaism, the peaceful religion. Buddhism, the peaceful religion. Nobody says that because those religions are not causing problems. Now, granted, they're not perfect. And granted, they're not, sometimes you have followers in those groups that are lunatics and insane. But for the most part, nobody anywhere in the world is fearful of Christian terrorism. And I mean actual terrorism, taking lives, hurting people. Let's go to verse 12. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. So what does that mean? That means he's in control of this empire. And again, a lot of preachers and a lot of people will tell you, oh, well, this is the Antichrist. He's the leader of this nation because, and some, that's the thing. Some of these preachers will tell you, well, the first beast is the Antichrist. The second beast is his false prophet. Well, it doesn't say that. Where are you getting this information? It doesn't say false prophet anywhere in this chapter. But John does mention a false prophet. And I'll give you a hint, it's Muhammad, and I can prove it to you scripturally. But again, they'll tell you and twist all of this stuff. And to me, it's almost like, have you read? Have you not only read the scripture, but do you know your history? Knowing your history is extremely important, especially for Christians. I mean, Paul tells you, you should be good at apologetics. If somebody asks you a question, you should have an answer. Now, granted, you're not going to have an answer for everything, but if you're not reading, if you're not researching, if you're not studying, if you're not understanding, then do your research. Read it out. And he tells them, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth, again, that word earth, meaning a territory or a border of land, right? An empire, its own thing, right? And them that dwell therein to worship the first beast. So he's telling you, you must be a patriot. You must love this beast. You must pay homage to it. You must, young men, prepare for battle. Young men, join the military. Young men, do this, right? You all have a duty to your nation. That's what it's telling you here. Whose deadly wound was healed. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So his deadly wound was healed. So John is already talking about things that have already happened, but he's also talking about things that haven't happened yet, right? Because that deadly wound was healed. Has that happened yet? Kind of, but not really. And we can dive into that at a later date. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. Now, all it says is he doeth great wonders. Okay, maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. Now, did he say that he's performing miracles here? Did he say that he's acting like Prophet Elijah, bringing down fire from heaven? No, it doesn't. You could potentially interpret it that way. This verse, I don't have the complete answer. And again, I've told y'all before, if I have an opinion, I'm going to tell you it's an opinion, right? I'm not going to tell you it's fact. Now, what I will tell you is fact is that this is Islam. This beast is Islam. What's fact is from 688 AD to the building of the Dome of the Rock to 1,260 days or 42 months and a day-to-year prophecy. Turn that into years. You add 688 AD to 1,260 days, you get 1948. That's a fact. However, this is my opinion. I think that it's just military might. Remember, John's getting a vision here, right? John is seeing this stuff. Imagine never seeing bombs or explosions or modern warfare, right? I think that's kind of what that means. I could be wrong. That's my opinion, okay? Because it doesn't say that it's miracles. It doesn't say that it's supernatural in any way. It just says he doeth great wonders, which is possible, that it could be some miraculous thing. I don't think that it is, though. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles. So he calls it miracles here, okay? He calls it miracles here, but he didn't call it miracles up there. And the reason I'm differentiating between this verse and the previous verse is because you have to know your history, okay? You have to know your history. Because Islam did perform miraculous things. They did things that no other group of people have done. I mean, Muhammad comes on the scene, right? And Muhammad literally conquers the entire Arabian Peninsula in less than 10 years. And then the Islamic Empire, right, or jihad at the time, conquers all up to Assyria or to Syria, all the way to Israel, to Jerusalem, and then they go all the way to Northern Africa and up to Europe in less than 100 years. That is, wow, that's insane, okay? Those are the miracles talked about, okay? Which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. And that's what I think that's talking about. I don't think it's referring to verse 13, right? Where he maketh fire come down from heaven. Now, it could. Again, that is, this right here, this portion is my opinion. If you have a different opinion, let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear what y'all have to say. And if y'all feel different, let me know. I want to know. I want to have a conversation about this. This is not a one-way thing, right? I want to hear what y'all have to say. I love a good discussion. So if you like a good discussion, comment in the on the video, and I will respond. Now, don't make it an inappropriate comment. There's no need to be rude or mean to anybody, but let's have a conversation. Now, again, I said I think these miracles are referring to a different time in Islamic history and what they did, and I could be wrong there. Which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. I think that image, okay? I think that image is a minaret. Now, why do I think it's a minaret? Well, let's go to verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Now, why do I think it's a minaret? Because it has the power to speak, right? It calls Muslims to prayer. And believe me, you go to some of these Muslim countries, you're a business owner, whatever, and you don't get out there and you don't pray when it calls you to prayer or do what it tells you to do, they will kill you, sack your business, and harm your family. That's no joke. It's happened before. Look it up. That's why I think it's a minaret. Now, let's go to 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or on their foreheads. What does that mean? What does it mean? And I know the King James Version says in, but the better translation from from what we know, would be on the right hand. And you actually look, let's look at that right here. The word hand, right? That's dexios.
Strong's G 1188. Dexios. Dexios.
So that's the right arm. Okay, that's not just the hand. That's the entirety of the arm, right? So what is this? Well, mark is actual badge. It's a badge of servitude. That's what it means. We can, don't believe me? Let's go. Look. Let's see. Mark.
Strong's G 5480. Charagma. Charagma.
A stamp, an imprinted mark of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as a badge of the followers of the Antichrist. The mark branded upon horses. Thing carved, sculpted, graven image of idolatrous images. So it's a badge, right? It's a badge of servitude. Okay? It's not a computer chip. It's not technology. I mean, it's real simple. It's just a badge of servitude is what it is. So once we figure out what the badge of servitude is, well, then you know what the mark of the beast is. But again, the mark of the beast has been here. It's been here for quite some time, even a little before 688 AD. It's been here. And why does he say, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond? So he's referring to people who are slaves. Well, the Islamic slave trade was the most brutal in all of human history. I know a lot of Americans like to gripe and complain that America did the worst by slavery. No. You have no idea. The Islamic slave trade was absolute barbarism. Okay, I know America did wrong. I know America did bad. I'm not saying that they didn't, and I'm not trying to lighten the blow of what they did. But the Islamic slave trade was the most brutality of slavery in human history. And it's still going on today. Let's go to verse 17. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So I kind of want to dive into that one because I hear a lot of preachers and I hear a lot of people like Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, all these people, and God bless them, whatever. They always seem to talk about this, and it's always preachers as well and other Christians that go on their shows that talk about, well, it's a cashless society. Well, where does it say that? What information where are you getting that from? Where does it say it's a cashless society? Look, even if we are moving to a cashless society, what does that have to do with this verse? I get that nowhere from this verse. It just says, and that no man might buy or sell. Well, there's a lot of places that do that. That have done that, especially throughout history. We don't like you, we're not selling, you're not buying. It's that simple. Why are we overgeneralizing this? Why are we adding things to this verse? It's pretty simple. If you don't have the mark, you're not going to buy or sell. If you don't have that badge of servitude, you will not buy, you will not sell, except if you have the mark or the name of the beast. Which beast is it referring to? The first beast or the second beast? Well, it's referring to the second beast because it says, or the number of his name. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We know that this is a beast, right? And the number of his name. Interesting. The number of his name. Okay. Well, if we know that this is Islam, let me just kind of give you the answer here. This second beast is Allah, right? The first beast is Islamic Empire. The second beast is its God, Allah. Okay, so read it this way, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of Allah, or any number of his name. Because Allah has 99 names, folks. If you don't know your history, if you don't know about other religions or other things, you're not going to know what this is talking about. And finally, verse 18, the one that everybody always, this is the most contested thing talked about in Islam. I'm sorry, in the Bible. That sounded terrible. I'm sorry. Here is wisdom. So what John is actually saying, so Sophia is wisdom in Greek.
Strong's G 4678, Sophia.
So let's go to Sophia. What does it mean? Wisdom. Full of intelligence, knowledge, very diverse matters. Okay. So he's telling you that you should have Sophia, wisdom, right? So he's kind of giving you an answer here. He's telling you, here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count. Now that word count, okay, is not the best translation to be put there. Okay? Not the best translation to be put there. Okay? So, the best word would be to reckon, right? That would be the best word. The best word used would be reckon or consider. Here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding consider the number of the beast. Well, how many numbers does Allah have? Well, he has 99 names. Consider those numbers. Consider the number of the beast. Consider his numbers. For it is the number of a man. Now, I know it says man, okay? But what it's referring to, and this, again, this verse right here, not fact. This is my opinion. This is my interpretation of what it is, okay? And my opinion is subject to change, just like yours is, just like everybody is. I'm not going to give you something and say, well, I think this is fact, when it's not fact. What I know is fact is that this is an Islamic beast and that it's already happened. The abomination of desolation's been here. It's been here since 688 AD. You add the 1,260 days, you get 1948, right? Those, to me, are facts. And you can disagree with me, but I think those are facts. This is my opinion. So, for it is the number of a man. I don't think it means an actual individual man here. And again, best commentation on the Bible is the Bible. Well, let's go to, I can't remember the exact verse. It is in Revelation where Jesus says, and I'm coming for, and that he's coming for his bridegroom. Is a bridegroom one individual person or is it the church? Well, it's the church, right? It's not an individual. I don't think that's what it's referring to. And it says, for this is the number of a man. I think it means the number of a multitude of people, right? For it is the number of a multitude of people. And his number is 666. Now, I personally believe that number, when it says that multitude, right? The number of a man or the number of a multitude, and his multitude is, and I think, okay, this is my opinion, that John was actually writing in the name of Allah, in Bismillah, right? I think that's what he was referring to. Again, I could be wrong. That's my opinion. That's my interpretation of it. If you have a different interpretation, let me know. But this is who the beast is. The beast is an Islamic powerhouse. And it is coming back. It's going to rear its ugly eighth head. It's going to happen. And I've got more to say on that. But I'm going to let y'all go for now. I'm going to let y'all ponder that. And I really, truly, I'm sorry about that, folks. I really, truly do pray for you. And I hope that you pray for me. And again, some of this is my opinion. A lot of it is fact, right? A lot of it is historical fact. A lot of it is, biblical and scriptural. And I'll go into more detail, too, with the scriptures of what is, why it is Islam. But again, I appreciate y'all for being here. I'll be live Monday through Friday, and I'm going to release short videos over the weekend, and I'll do actual videos during the weekdays. But again, I appreciate y'all for being here. I pray for y'all, pray for the restoration of faith in this nation, and please like and subscribe to my channel. I will be giving a lot more information, especially on God's timeline. Y'all